All right, there's plenty of videos here on YouTube to see how you actually assemble any number of these wood chippers, but the Landworks one, I'll just give a quick little view of what you have when you open the box and what to expect. Of all the reviews I read, this one seemed like it probably goes together the easiest. All right, we've got it all unpacked, and thankfully, no damaged pieces. One of the things when you're reading all these reviews on Amazon and other places is the chute comes bent, some of the pieces are coming bent or damaged in shipping. And I'm surprised it wasn't damaged. The kid said as Amazon dropped it off, the driver definitely struggled getting it off the truck onto the driveway and then onto the dolly to lead on up here to the garage. So we're gonna go ahead and put this together, but this is what it looks like. It actually really only comes with a few pieces, so this shouldn't take too long. All right, we got it all together. My boys helped me out. It takes about 10-15 minutes if you have everything out and organized. What's always crazy about stuff like this is it uses a mix of sizes. So you're gonna need a 10 millimeter, an 11 millimeter, and a 12 millimeter, and a 13 millimeter wrench or socket, or a combination thereof to do it. Some of the bolts were just, cheap, and so they probably should have been a 13 millimeter, but they were odd size, so we needed a 12 millimeter. But a socket and a ratchet and a couple wrenches, because it's kind of hard to get some of the bolts in here. I'll show you. Down when you're putting the chute on, like you're gonna need a wrench for in here, but then when you need to go put the legs on it and stuff, a socket and a wrench, socket to make it go faster, and then a wrench to hold the nut underneath. And one little thing that the instructions do not show is when you go to put the legs on this, there is this brace right here for the air filter that already has a bolt in it. So you need to remove that bolt and put on a new bolt and nut for that. So if you're not very handy and you go to line up the foot, you may be a little confused there. Wheels pop on real easy with cotter pins. But overall, again, 10-15 minutes, super simple. Put it together, bolt on the handle, and all right, we're ready to test it out, but we're not gonna do that today. We'll try that tomorrow afternoon. All right. All right, so we've got the chipper all set up, assembled. I've got it gassed up. I put some oil in it, and I tested it out last night and getting it started. And so I will say for the couple branches I ran, I was pretty impressed. But before we get into just some of the footage of how it works, you're probably like me, where you were, went online and you decided you needed a chipper. It's very hard to decide which one to buy. I mean, the problem here is if you start reading all these reviews and other YouTube videos, the opinions about these things are all over the map. So there's a couple things that we have to remember right out of the gate. So I live in South Carolina, and it is 2022, and right now, you can kind of see a pine tree behind me back here. That costs $3,000 right now to have a tree company come in and cut something down like that. So if someone's online and think they're gonna buy a wood chipper for $600 or $700, that's gonna do what a professional company will do for $3,000, you have the wrong expectation. These things really are just for the branches and brush around the house. This is not a commercial machine. And so when you're reading these reviews, I think a lot of people are they're just dumb in what they think a 7 horsepower gas engine is gonna do to oak and redbud and pine and things like that. And that leads into the second thing. What are you going to chip? Here in South Carolina, we have a lot of wax myrtle and pine trees, and if you cut them and it's fresh, this thing will tear up through it very quickly and it chips them very easily. But if you let that wood season and it becomes much harder, obviously the machine's gonna struggle. But again, I couldn't decide which one to buy. I was getting super frustrated. You've got the Harbor Freight one, which has mixed reviews. You've got the DR2 from Lowe's with the Kohler engine. And then of course you have all of the Chinese brands on Amazon that are basically the same thing. They all basically use this same 7 horsepower engine. And the big difference between the two when you're looking on Amazon is what type of chute do they have. I opted to go for the smaller front chute compared to the one main chute that you'll see out the back on a lot of these. And that's because of the position of the blade and the type of blade that it uses. When I was reading through the reviews, it seemed that most people had the biggest complaint about the chippers that had the one big chute. A lot of everyone else out there had way less aggravation and complaints about the ones that had the smaller front shoot that just takes, you know, the 3-inch tree. And now that we're talking about 3 inches, again, remember, 3 inches is very subjective. 3 inches of pine is a much easier branch to chip and shred than 3 inches of an oak tree. So on my property, I've got a bunch of live oaks. This is a pin oak. I mean, you could chop that down now, and if you let that wood season for a couple months, you're going to be lucky to get through it with a big, huge Husqvarna and a chainsaw. I mean, it is so hard. So real quick before we'll go into some footage of using it. If you read these reviews and you have people complaining of hard starts or hard to shut off, I really think that's operator error. And that's the problem with a lot of these reviews is people just do not know what they're doing. They're not using the right oil and unreasonable expectations. I didn't realize this one actually does have an on-off switch over here, which just cuts the electric charge from the spark plug. It's got the choke and a fast, you know, a run fast. So it's a little rainy this morning, but we'll see if it gets started up on the first couple pulls here. So push it on, turn it to low, choke is on. Almost. Oh, sorry. Actually, there's also a gas valve on here, which I did not have turned, so that's probably what the problem was. The other thing, when I was reading the reviews, people were complaining about the machine not feeding. Now, when I started up for the first time yesterday, my kids were totally teasing me because I didn't realize how powerful it was. When I started with the first branch, it sucked it right out of my hand and it totally startled me. But the one thing that the machine will not do is it's not going to chip these Y's and everything, right? So it'll take this part up here perfectly fine, but when it gets down to the V and the Y, it's not going to, you know, the chute's not wide enough and it's just not going to feed through. So what you want to do with this to make yourself more efficient is you definitely want to trim down your pile. So obviously you can see we have this huge pile back here where we throw all our stuff and we have it forever. And our project is to chip it up. But what you're going to want to do is have the kids or you prep all your branches for chipping, you know, make them a little bit more narrow so they'll feed in. You'll have to feed a couple more items down the line, but it will be easier standing feeding it out than sitting there fighting with the machine. So something like this will feed much easier. All right, let's get it started up. All right, here it goes. 3 or 4 pulls. So you can see. All right, it does take a couple 20, 30 seconds for it to fully shut down all the way. but you can see it tears through the brush. If you come over here, you can check out these wood chips. Pretty impressive. So you see all I was throwing through there, some pine branches. I mean, that's pretty impressive mulch, I got to tell you, you know, for chipping out stuff. Well, that's how you get it started. That's the initial impressions. We're going to chip this afternoon, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about some closing thoughts. All right, so we've used this now for a couple hours, and I have to say, I am flat out impressed. What's important to me is the value for the dollar, and I have to say, for the $650 that this was on Amazon, I'm flat out amazed. I did not have that high expectations based on several other YouTube videos I saw and a lot of reviews of it stalling out, getting clogged, or bolts coming loose. And I've had none of that. I mean, you have to be realistic. So you can kind of see here, this is the max, what you really can expect to chip without too much of an issue. Stuff like this, you know, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, this is 1.5 inch, 2 inch diameter. I mean, definitely when we put some bigger stuff in there, it slowed it down, it bogged it down a little bit. I never stalled it out, and the boys and I have been out here chipping. And I will say, just like anything else, it's a lot of work and it still takes a lot of time. Now, the one thing I am disappointed about is the chute. We don't really have a lot of leaves. It's not the fall, but the chute is worthless. I mean, it clogs, it doesn't feed, it doesn't suck anything in there. I'm going to still try a couple different ways to see if we can get some pine needles and leaves in there. But the one thing is the problem is the flaps up top really stop a lot of stuff going in, and it just doesn't suck it in there, whether you close this back up and to have more suction or what. But there's on the side over here, there's this cover, the cover plate, so you can put it in the top. So if you're buying this for leaves, you may have to check a couple more reviews out. I'm going to still try again, but utterly that chute is definitely worthless to me. Now, one little hint I will tell you, it is really good to have a pusher stick. So you, just like a table saw, so you can feed this. Now we can put everything in here, pine cones, needles, leaves, brush, trees, everything. And sometimes it just wouldn't feed all the way, and you could push it in there, and it did a great job. And as you can see in some of the footage I'll roll in here, it definitely chips and shreds. So if you use it wisely, don't overload it. The tank, we ran it, it probably runs for about 45 minutes all out before you need to fill it up with some gas. All right, this will give you an idea of the chips and the mulch that come out. So we've been putting everything from sago palm fronds, brush, juniper branches, hardwood leaves, and branches from hedges and shrubs. And you can see it definitely will shred it and make short work of a lot of stuff. Obviously it doesn't really shred up the leaves too much. All right, as far as how long it runs, when we filled up the tank, the tank's not very big, but it'll give you a good 40 minutes, 45 minutes of running. We were trying to keep track of it. So the gas at full, we had it on the fastest speed, grinding the whole time. You get about 45 minutes per tank. So all in all, definitely worth the money. I think this is the one to try out if you're torn about a couple different ones and you're looking at these videos and Amazon reviews and stuff. Remember when we were growing up and DR Power used to have all those infomercials for the field and brush mowers and the chipper and shredders. This is not a DR power chipper quality type thing, and obviously it's half the price. But in the grand scheme of things of cost, as I said, talking about taking down a pine tree, you know, a real tree company wants $3 to take down a pine tree and take all the debris away. That does not include grinding the stump. Right now, you can have someone come and limb up trees for about $700–800 without taking away the debris. So when you're considering how much something like this costs, it does a great job compared to what a professional does. So who's this for? This is for a homeowner. This is not a commercial unit, but if you change the oil, take care of it, don't overload it, it'll give you several years of good use. And again, when you consider how many hours of use you get out of something versus how much you paid for it, you got 2-3 years out of it before it kind of kicked the bucket, you made out like a bandit. All right, so I hope that you found this helpful. One last thing is if you're looking at the other chippers out there, I would definitely, if you don't decide to go with the Landworks, I would definitely make sure you choose one that's got the front chute that goes into the blade. All right, we'll check you out the next time. Thanks. Couple of more notes. I said earlier that the top chute was useless, and I've retracted that by 50%. It definitely clogs. Perhaps if you're in the north and you're just doing oak leaves and stuff like that, it might be better. But it does transport pretty easy. It's got this handle right here. You tilt it back. The tires are great. We've lugged it around the backyard here, and it's pretty uneven. And again, like I said a couple minutes ago, definitely surprised me. Three tanks of gas today, and if you remember earlier in the video, you can kind of see how much chipping we did today. That pile that was behind here is all gone, and all that's left is pine straw, dirt, and mulch. So it was myself and my 2 boys working all Saturday, but we definitely got it done. And so if you were working in your yard, your property, and you're looking for a decent chipper that's not going to break the bank, I definitely give this guy 2 thumbs up. He was a champ. One last thing before we close this out. I forgot, my boys reminded me a couple minutes ago. So there's a lot of 2-star and 1-star review, not just on the Landworks, on all of these. And if you read them, it's because of damage in shipping. And I think it's pretty unfair to hold it against the machine if it came damaged. I mean, look, you know, you can't help that. It's amazing that these things come in one piece as it is. So if you're reading through those reviews and you see that, I don't think that's a review you can count.